Welcome to part 2 of the Larry Anderson story.
So we live in a capitalistic market that's based on profit, creating commerce that generates prosperity. The only thing that's marketed us is an institution that denies all of those things from happening by becoming what? Nonprofit. Nonprofit means that you ain't supposed to make no money. In a capitalistic market that is designed to make money, create profit so that you can expound and expand your industry, what they're telling you is, well, for you, that ain't going to be so because you can't do that. In other words, at our benevolence, we're going to give you money and you just going to exist, but you can't make a profit. In a profit-driven culture, how are you going to be nonprofit? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean for you? Well, that means for you that you have to raise money, you have to beg for money. So you have to be dependent on somebody else giving you money to beg for money so that you can exist. To do what? Well, certainly not to turn a profit. If you're not turning a profit, what are you doing? How do I create commerce? So we say, well, this is good for the black community. They have all these nonprofits. Well, let's see how they have profited the black community. These nonprofits profited the black community, who, by the way, use the black community's grievances to solicit funds to support their nonprofit. How do they do that? Well, they take the grievances. They have to have things happen to black folks that are grievous so that they can take their grievance and beg for money. That's called pimping. You know why they ain't got no problem with giving athletes so much money and putting them up there and say, hey, look at Damian Lillard. Look how much money Damian Lillard's making for running them down the court during basketball. Making millions, man. You know? So when they give Damian all this money and Damian wants to buy a house, where you going to buy a house at? Who you going to buy the house from? He going to buy the house from one of them nonprofit organizations? You know why they ain't got no problem creating dudes that they can say this is your leadership and all that? Because if I give you all that money, who are you going to give it back to? The minute you want to buy a nice car, the minute you want to move to a nice neighborhood, the minute you want to have some nice clothes, the minute you want to eat some real food. Who are you going to go? You going to go to a nonprofit and get those things? You're going to get the money right back to them. Who is them? The people who own everything, including your black community. They own it. Even in Portland, Oregon, we don't have no black community. You have to have 5 things in order to have a community that you control, to call a community. Number 1 is you control the food you eat. You own a grocery store? I mean, own it. You control the educational system. You control the schools, how your kids get educated. You control that. You control where you go get treated if you have a medical emergency. You own any of that? What about bankings? You own a bank, escrow company? You own a power plant? Or power your energy needs? Do you own the means of production for anything? Well, then where's this community that you're talking about? And what nonprofit is facilitating that happening in our community? ownership. So that we can generate commerce between us so that the money that we bring in stays in our community before it goes out. So that we become the beneficiary of our own income. You can't do this in isolation, man. That you have to have a community to do that. You have to have commerce to do that. You have to have something to exchange. You have to have it has to float around so that we can all benefit from the income that we make in building up what's important to us in our own community. If we're not doing that, then what are you doing? Oh, a neighborhood where a few black people live together, you think that's a community? There's never been a black community in Portland that I know of in particular. We are galvanized around a grievance that we can exploit and then bring those grievances to our keepers and then beg for money. That's what I see happening. I don't see anybody creating enough commerce so that we can generate enough income that can result in the prosperity that we can deal with our own issues as a community. And if somebody bothers us or intrudes upon us, we can punish them. The police department is the last thing that you have, because when you have something of value, you want to be able to protect it. And you want that department working to protect your best interests. That's why you always had localized community police, one of the few countries and systems that has a localized community legal system represented by the officers in that system, sheriff's offices, different things, so that you can protect yourself and protect your community from the broader intrusion of the greater good. So that's why people had localized, that's why you had elected sheriffs rather than appointed officials. Why was the sheriff elected? So that if the sheriff had to investigate his own people, or he had to investigate corruption in the government, he couldn't be dismissed by those people, those officials in the government that he's investigating. This is the part that crushes me about the people don't understand about the police department. Number one, whenever there's a scandal in the police department, who investigates it? The police. You don't have the means to go outside and investigate nothing. It's the police that actually do it. It's the sheriff that comes in. They investigate themselves. They're the party that is responsible for conducting investigation, even for themselves. And if you can leverage them to investigate themselves, that's why it's so important that you have a healthy department. Not this madness of let's get it. Look, my people were raised as law-abiding citizens. We understood as a people group what it meant to not have representation in the police department, not have police officers respect you as a person. We live with that. That's why we understand that it's very important to be law and order supporters and to have a compartment that represents your community, because they're the ones that's going to protect you. When these people say defund the police and all that, okay, my daughter gets raped, am I going to call you? Who am I calling? Nobody? Go out there and shoot people myself? That's chaos. So not only did my daughter get raped and destroy her life, now I'm going to destroy my life by going out taking events. We all destroy. This is what they're selling you by telling you, oh, well, we're not going to defund the police because they're corrupt. You know how corrupt the police department was in the 60s? What nobody talking about defund the police? Please do your job. Recognize us as the people and go do your job for us. You can leverage that when you have power. You don't get that by disbanding the whole unit because they're of no use to you. Now you're vulnerable to any fool that decides to pick up a gun and start shooting. It'd been laughable if it wasn't so tragic of who we listen to in this city now, who we listened to back then when the Black Lives Matter. That's the tragedy. Who was we listening to? Because where are they at now, and what does the city look like since we've listened to them? If you don't believe me, walk around. You got people out here shooting each other with guns. What, you think they're going? What? So they're going to listen to a counselor coming out there with a leaflet? No kind of world you live in. Let me ask you something. Did the shootings decrease or increase since Black Lives Matter? Since we defunded the police? Since we have alternative solutions to the crime and the murder and the chaos going on the street? Are we better or are we worse? Now, when I was having this conversation at the time, they were talking about doing that. Oh, Larry, you ain't down with the brothers. You blue. You definitely look, man. I'm the last person that supports a corrupt police department. Like, I ain't got enough problems. I got to deal with that. And believe me, I have dealt with corruption in the police department. I have never said that the police department ain't corrupt. Don't got corruption. Do you know anything that is associated with people and persons that isn't corrupt somewhere? So you'll dismiss all of the doctors in the whole community because there's corruption in the hospitals, in the medical profession? So when you need to go to the hospital, oh, don't go to the hospital, man, because there's corruption there. But yeah, this is what we want to do with the police department. Oh, we just get rid of all of them. So has that made us better or worse? Look around. Look around. Now you got police officers, and I'm talking about the dudes that are doing their job, quitting and leaving and don't want to even be the police anymore. You got 750 officers, I think, man, in a city this size. It was 1,500 officers when I left the department. And that wasn't enough. You got 750. You have been abandoned. And the people who are responsible for abandoning you are no longer here. You can't find them. And when people ask me, well, Larry, what happened? I said, you listen to the wrong people. You just listen to the wrong people. And all those people that were talking to us, man, they done took the money and they're gone, man. They done ran off. And they got the white folks to give you millions of dollars. Where you know where you've seen it? You've seen that money spent building all these condominiums and buildings and all these contracts and making all this money, and they still talking about there's a housing shortage. I driving down here, I passed maybe 7 new buildings that are vacant. Now, Phil, but we got a housing shortage. No, they building stuff that people can't afford. This is who we listen to. Now that we've listened to them, and it's 5 years, 10 years later, does anybody go back and ask the question, what happened? Let me tell you what happened. They abandoned you. They left you to fend for yourself. And now all your stores, your big box stores, are leaving. And what is the number one reason that he's telling you why they're leaving? They say crime, but what they mean by that is that we can no longer afford to do business here. When you're in a capitalistic market, you have a certain amount of part of your business is dealing with the crime aspect of it. You build that into your model. What they're telling you is it isn't crime that's driven them away, is that they can no longer make enough money in this market to be in business. You understand what that means? So they packed up their stores and they have split. They ain't split from Clackamas. They ain't split from Beaverton. They split from Portland. They split from your neighborhood, from your community where you exist. They're gone. Guess what they're telling you? This is what the non-profit system does. We can't make no money. If you can't make no money, we can't make no money. That's the exchange. If we can't do business, then nothing else matters. Where is the black community at, by the way? I know you're going to ask me that. That's a good question. I don't know. The black community that I grew up in, where people own their own businesses, they own their stores, they own the realtor markets, they own barbershop, mechanic shops. We had black doctors working in the clinics that they own. I grew up with a black dentist, had his own practice, had lawyers. That's all gone. When I drive through what used to be my community, it ain't there no more. It's gone. But we still have these poverty pimps showing up occasionally and saying they represent the black community. This is what the black community want. And I asked them the same question. Where is this black community at physically that you say you represent? Where are they? Now, remember, when I was working, I'm driving around every day on the street looking for this black community. Every day. I got paid to be on the street driving a car every day in the community looking for the black people. Because that was the community that I was endeared to. That's the community that I served. I served all people in the black community, because when you have a black community, it doesn't mean only black people live there. Just like we live in over here, it doesn't mean that only white people live here. But why they call it a white community? Because everything of significance, white people own and run. You would call it a black community. That means that anything of significance should be owned and ran by black people. That's what I would call a black community. When I walk to a black community, I should see black people running things, on a business. When I retired from the police department, there was a group of men that I've been working. They said, "Larry, you should go for the mayor," which was a joke. I'm not qualified to be no mayor. Are you kidding me? But they were like, "No, you should be the mayor. You should be the mayor. You should run for the mayor. You should run for office and get these issues." I said, "And who's going to support me?" Well, you got to support the black community. And where's this black community at? That's going to support me. Because the only way I can possibly win mayorship is I got to go get other people in the community to support me too. Which means that then I have to represent their issues. Because there's a critical enough mass of black people here for me to be representative of only black people. And then I would have to become a pimp. Because I would have to then negotiate to get things just to exist. That's what a poverty pimp is, man. They take advantage of our poverty, and that's what they market. That's what we bring to the table. And they exist by exploiting that and fear-mongering and playing on people's emotions to stay at the table, to stay relevant in the game. Because if they don't do that, if there's no grievance, if there's nothing to fear among them, then they're not ever, nobody's going to pay attention to them, because don't nobody like pimps. So what is capital based on? If you don't own anything, what do you bring to capitalize? What do you own that you could offer as collateral in order to receive something to be capitalized? What do you have that's valuable that we can capitalize on it? We can take advantage of this because this is valuable. What do black folks in general own? What do they own? They don't even own their own labor. They don't even own their own image. If the one place that we should be able to capitalize on our talent and ability is in the music industry. I mean, we literally are the music industry. But we don't own the industry. So if I'm a venture capitalist and you come to me and say, hey man, I want you to capitalize this idea I have. I say, what about the idea that you bring that's valuable to me? So that I can capitalize you. What do you bring to the table? That's, first of all, if I said I can bring 10 more people like me to the table, that is valuable. If I said, well, you know what? I can play this here, but I can bring 10 more cats just like me to the table, that it won't come to the table unless I bring them. Is that valuable to you? Yes, it is. But we can't even do that. There's a story that said, if you find me 10 people of value in here, I won't destroy the whole. I won't wipe them off the face of the earth. They couldn't even find 10. That is our plague. You know why? We can't even get along with each other long enough. You know why? Because all that dude got to do is find one or two of those guys and pick them off and say, hey, man, I'll capitalize you, but don't be with that guy, and we gone. Capitalization essentially breaks down to, can you be unified in solidarity about anything? You know, and see, that's been trained out of it. That's been taught out of us. We capitalize everybody else's venture, but never for ourselves. We've been trained to do that. We've been taught to do that. It's by design. That's where the word sellout comes from. Because, you know, we used to be rewarded that if we wouldn't told master when there was going to be an uprising, if we protected his interests, if we protected his property, if we protected his life, then we were rewarded. We've internalized that now. That's why you can't. So we'll never get capitalization because they don't need us, because they can always go get somebody else to do what you could do independent of you, because we don't have a community. And so if you don't have a community, where's your basis for solidarity and unity? And we've been taught to hate ourselves, and therefore we hate each other. We have never dealt with our own betrayal. We're too busy having grievances against those oppressors who have oppressed us, but we have never dealt with our own betrayal. We ain't honest about it. And so because we're not honest about it, we never deal with it. And so if it never gets dealt with, it always exists. And so the suspicion and the distrust lingers. And those people who are in power count on that. They play that up. And this is why you'll never have capitalization of anything that's going to benefit solely black people. They've even criminalized you to believe that you're doing something wrong if you do something strictly for black people first. When I was a recruiter, I was the minority recruiter. I was the black recruiter. I used to get in trouble for just doing my job. White people in the police department held 99% of all positions. That means that the rest of us left got 1%. My job was to go out and to increase that. The fact that I went out and increased that, you know what they would accuse me of? Reverse discrimination. How could I be reverse discrimination unless discrimination has happened in the first place, which justifies my position? But they actually criminalize. Well, are you and they ain't got black people. What's the first thing black people say when they get in charge? Well, we're here for everybody. Why are you here for everybody? Why aren't you here for black people first? If I hear one more person say that, I'm at the NAACP meeting. You would think at the NAACP meeting we could at least say, hey, we're here for black people. No, we are inclusive. Do you know what inclusive means, diversity means? It means that they ain't talking about you no more. Inclusion means everybody else but you. Urban removal means they're getting rid of you. Urban renewal means Negro removal. That's what my brother said. They get rid of you. We got black people now saying that to each other. We need to be diversified and we need to be inclusive. You believe that if you do something for black people that you're doing something wrong. If I say I want to do this so that black people benefit from it, my people first, and then whatever is left will deal with the rest of the folks, you believe you're doing something wrong. Or somehow you being discriminatory. They got you believing that. So that's why we have no organization. That's why we're not organized as a people group. How is a disorganized people group ever going to fight against an organized effort to oppress you? And that's why I always want to deal with you as an individual. But that's what I say, we're individuals. They're not individual, they are collective. Racism is not individual. Racism is a collective, organized, institutionalized culture. Nobody can deal with it as an individual. But they got you playing that game. Oh man, you brother, when you come to them, they're, we're just individuals. I can't do nothing about it. We're just, you don't drunk the soup. And now we're saying, they don't have to say it anymore. We're saying it to each other. And if I come back and say, hey man, we're going to do this just for black people, then black people get nervous because, well, we must be doing something wrong if only black people are going to benefit from this. We have been totally programmed and conditioned to our own self-destruction. So that the people who oppressed us, they sit back and watch us do it to ourselves. That's why we kill each other in the street at an unprecedented rate. Nobody cares. That's why nobody wants to go to a black store, a black business and buy nothing. Do you realize if black people don't buy from black businesses, white people already ain't buying from black businesses, Mexicans ain't buying from you, Asians ain't buying from you. That's a complete boycott. Black people kill me by boycotting. We're going to boycott them. Well, you know what? White folks still going to buy from them. Sure, you can have an impact. But the boycott's been effective. But white people and other people, they still buying this stuff. Black businesses is the only one that get boycotted by everybody. If we don't buy from ourselves, guess what? Nobody else buys from it. That's a complete boycott. That's why our businesses go like that. And then we want to have a grievance and, well, brother, look, if you start a business, right? Say you go up to the grocery store and you got food ain't good. I'm going to come to you. The community will get together and say, look, man, you need to give us some real life food. We're going to pay for it, but you need to come up with some real life food. You need to get up your ass and do some work. We need to demand excellence. That's what I grew up with. That's what I grew up with when we were so-called under oppression. We were so-called under segregation. I grew up on a farm. We raised our own food. We raised our cattle. We raised the food that we ate. We were very quite capable. And if I went over to somebody's farm to trade something, don't come out with no BS animals because we're like, hey, look, we ain't playing that. We know, brother, you need to step your game up. We didn't boycott you. We put peer pressure on you to get you to step your game up. Or we replaced you with somebody else that was going to step the game up. We didn't boycott you and go give our business to somebody else. But that's what we do today. We complain about the brothers admitting prices too high, you don't got the right stuff. And then the first thing, we can't wait to run out and pay somebody else. Give them all our money. Instead of coming to you and say, hey, man, brother, get your game together. This is what we need. This is what help you to build your business. Get it right, man. We're going to support you, but to buy for you, we don't want to buy no bull BS, man. We want to buy some quality stuff. So get your stuff together, man. And we're going to help you do that. And then we're going to so we can buy quality stuff. And we'll pay you a fair wage and we'll exchange our money with you because we know we got to create the commerce between us because that's how prosperity comes to the whole community. I don't do that by saying, well, since that brother out there, I'm going to go buy from the Asian cat over here. And then get mad at the Asian cat because he don't treat you right. Then want to boycott his store, burn his stuff down, rather than, dude, go get your own store. Put your own brothers in business. You got kids, put your kids in business. Teach business ownership. We don't know what ownership means. We you know what we call ownership? Self-employed. We self-employed. We're not owners of business. We employ ourselves and then we work ourselves to death. But we're not teaching you how to own the business, how to capitalize on the ideas, how to communicate those ideas so that they become mutual. And until we start doing that, we're never going to be able to compete. And we're always going to have a grievance, and there's always going to be George Floyd's, and there's always going to be murder in the street, and you're always going to live in a community that's not representative of who you are. I don't care how many black people live there. In fact, when you get a whole bunch of black people living together that don't have a community, what do you have? Ghetto. A place that you want to get out of. So it ain't just occupying space. It's actually having a plan, put the plan together. I got Chad I wrote this book with, he's like, well, Larry, I'm not racist. I said, yeah, but you practice racist behavior. How's that? I said, you still live in an all-white community. You ain't sold your house and moved next to no black people with intent and purposes. Because you know why? Because you think by moving next to black people, your property value go down. That your house won't be worth as much. Your status will be somehow diminished. That is the residue that makes you a racist, even when you're not self-consciously declaring yourself to be one. This is what we're dealing with. We got to get out of the emotional stuff and deal with the actual reality and face it. Just like I had to learn in the police department. I had to stop being emotional, being scared, being driven by emotions, and I had to face and deal with the reality of what was actually happening in our community. For that, I'm eternally grateful. And I'm going to tell you something. It's disturbing, but it's necessary. Well, I think that sums it up pretty good. I'd never heard that word. That word was never used in my family. Ever. Wasn't used in my neighborhood. People around me. We lived around white folks. Never heard anybody use that term. And old man Vance, when he first said it, I was confused about it. But the deal was, my mother was a very patient, caring, teaching, loving. If I, come to me, talk to me about anything, son. If you got an issue, embarrassing things, you talk to me. But not about that word. Her reaction to me, and I've asked her about some things that were pretty, because my mother used to say, boy, you're always thinking about, so what are you doing thinking about that kind of stuff as a young man? Why are you thinking about that? But she would always take time, she would stop and explain. This day, it was none of that. It was, my mother had this look of, don't you ever say that word. Matter of fact, the repercussions for saying that word were immediate. And my mother never explained to me why she did that. First time ever happened to me. And it taught me there's something bad about that word. It's not just profanity, because I heard profanity in my house before. I listened to my father and my uncle play dominoes. You're going to hear some profanity in the house, okay? But I never heard that word. And my mother told me through her behavior that word is not acceptable. That word does not identify with us. That is not who we are. Don't you even address that word and give that word the time of the day. And I never forgot that. I never forgot that. I've never referred to myself by that word. Now, as admittedly as I got older and younger with my friends, we used to call each other that because that's the word going along. I said, listen, Richard Pryor. But I'm going to tell you this, when I got out of my family, never said that word. Never mentioned it one time. As I grew up and began to understand the meaning and the attachment to that word, I appreciated what my mother had done. Sometimes we do too much explaining to our kids like they're adults, like there's something they need to know. Sometimes you just need to know that word there isn't appropriate for us. I think if a lot of that had been done, we wouldn't be dealing with the ramifications of what that word means in our community to this day. The need to have to explain everything to children all the time. What my mother told me was, you are my son, and as my son, you do not use that word. Period. And because I respected my mother, I don't use the word. To this day, when me and my friends are out in the street talking crazy to each other, let some old woman walk by. Guess what? All that stuff cut out immediately. Hey man, you don't call each other that. No, hey man, watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. Young people don't do that today. I told people, I said, man, look, I'm 6'6", man. I weigh 280 pounds. I was a police officer carrying a gun. If I was talking crazy on the street, my mother or some grandma walked in the room, I would shut that off immediately. You think that's because my mother can whoop me? You think that's because I'm afraid of her? No, it's respect. What my mother taught me, what she taught me that day, unbeknownst to me, boy, respect yourself more than that. Don't even give no dignity to that. Don't even require no explanation for that. Don't even address that. Respect yourself. Have respect for yourself. And if you can't have respect for yourself, have respect for your mother. For me, that respect is why I put my gun back in my holster. You understand what I'm saying? That respect is why I went through a whole career, and there were times that I could have shot somebody, but I didn't. Respect for yourself, respect for you, respect for life, respect for people. People are worth the time you need to invest in working out whatever you need to invest. You don't need to just end it and get rid of folks. That's what everybody want to do. Everybody want a quick thing and just get rid. They don't want to get in there and do the hard work. They don't want to get in there and get messy and get dirty. They don't want to get in there and bring up the past so that we can move past it rather than be inhibited by it. They don't want to deal with the betrayal. They just want to deflect it onto somebody else so they can have grievance. Respect for yourself, for your people, for my mother will never let me do that, just like that word. That's what it taught me. Larry, don't dignify that by reacting and responding to that. Have more respect for yourself. And I think that's why I've been able to do what I did in my career, and why I can talk about these right now, and why it doesn't have to be a popular. I don't have to be a populist. You don't have to be popular. I remember literally you get to directly impact at the time results in people's lives at their worst moment. Now, I won't pretend like I saved people's lives, but I certainly intervened. I stopped a whole lot of brothers from going to jail. I intervened in a whole lot of brothers whose livelihoods would probably be destroyed today if I hadn't been around. I got cats coming up to me now, years later, and thanking me, who I don't even know. I remember I was coming out of men's group one day, and we were on MLK at Russell, and we were meeting in a building, and I come walking out the building. Now, you always hear all this negative stuff all the time, right? I come walking out the building. I was standing out front talking to some dudes, and a bus, TriMet bus went by up MLK, right? And I'm always looking at stuff, and I see this brother on the bus waving like this. I don't know if he waving to me or he waving to somebody, so I just kind of went like this, hey, you know how you go, hey, And next thing you know, the bus stopped at the corner, right? And I'm talking, this dude jumps off the bus. And he's running down the street towards us, right? And I'm like, what's this dude doing? What are you doing? And so you look at it, Officer Edison. I don't know this dude from, I don't have no idea what this dude is. Officer Edison, man, I just want to, he runs up to me, hugs me. He says, man, I'm so glad I saw you, man. I've been wanting to see you and just tell you how much I appreciate you. And man, you saved my life. And I'm like, and you're a little embarrassed because you don't remember that. You don't know nothing this brother talking about, right? But he all serious, right? So I'm like, I'm glad I can help you, man. He says, no, man, I know you don't remember, but you came to my house one day and I was having a problem with my baby's mama. And, and then you ended up arresting me. And, you took me to the jail, and then I got some counseling, and you recommended some counseling. I mean, he's going through this whole thing that happened that I can't remember. It's just a day in the life, right? And he says, man, you told me when I was sitting in the car, you looked at me, and you said, brother, you better than this. Now, I don't remember. It sounded like something I would say. And he said, when you said it to me, I'm handcuffed. I'm going to jail, and you told me that I'm better than this. And get in and take this time now to think about your life and get your life together. He said, man, I remember that. And he said, and they were going to release me on my own cognizance, and I refused to be released. I said, I need some help. Because one of the things I used to tell brothers all the time, I said, don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help, man. There ain't no shame in asking for help if you need help. Ain't no shame if you don't know what to do, ask somebody who know. And the brother said he told the judge he didn't want to come out of jail. He wanted to get the rehab program. He got the rehab program. He said, I went to jail, sobered up, got my life together, started thinking about what you're saying. I started, man, he's going through this whole thing. I have no idea that kind of impact. I can't take credit for it because that wasn't my intent. But this brother thought enough of it to jump off that bus and to run down the whole block just to tell me, thank you. He said, man, I appreciate you. Now, I've had countless people do that. I had a little kid. He was a little kid at the time who told me, he's a grown man now. He said, man, I remember you came to my house when my mom and daddy were fighting. And I was scared. And I used to carry these teddy bears around. We used to have all these people would give teddy bears to the police department. And they used to just sit in the front. And I would see all these. I said, well, why are these teddy bears sitting in front? I used to put them in my car, throw them in my car. And so when I used to go into the houses like that, and family fights and kids was in there, everything, I would ask the parents if it's okay if I gave their kids something. Sometimes they would say, yeah. Sometimes they don't like you, And I'd go out and get these little teddy bears, I'd give the kids teddy bears and stuff, little kids. And this little kid says, I remember, you said, you gave me this teddy bear. He still got the thing. And he said, I remember you came to my house and my parents were fighting and we were scared. He said, and you gave me this teddy bear. You went in your car and you took me out the car and you opened it up. You had all these teddy bears. You said, hey, man, pick one. And I picked one. And then I was standing there and you looked at me. He said, what's that? He said, can I give one for my sister? You said, yeah, man. He said, took two. He remembered that. I remember that. He said that impacted his life to where he became, stuff like that. You can't count. You can't anticipate nothing like that. You hear that all the time. People like, man, you did this, you said this, you did. Impact. One kid said that I came to intervene when his father was going to kill him and arrested him. He was mad at me for arresting him. And I told him, I said, yeah, but your father didn't kill you, did he? No, you still alive. All the time people will say, I live in this community. I walk around this community today. I've never had anybody come up and say to me, you mistreated me, man. Maybe they just don't come up. But I live in the community where I work, and I've never had, I'm in the community all the time. I had people come and say, man, obviously at the time I didn't appreciate you, but I really appreciate what you did, what you said. I really appreciate the time that you showed up. There used to be some elderly women. I would always go by and visit them. There was this one brother, I can tell you his name, but he was a little gang member. He was working up at a restaurant that I used to go to, Fred's restaurant. Me and my partner used to go in there all the time, and we see him in there working. He's a little gangster, a little thug, run around the street. I used to recognize him. He was serving us our food, right, in this little restaurant. He was also stealing out the till. He didn't know that we knew that because the guy was, the owner was telling me, but he didn't want us to deal with him. Well, one day this kid gets shot. Gets shot right through his pelvis. Maybe I think he's up in the Manual Hospital. We hear about it. Me and my partner Dave, we hear about it. So we say, let's go up here and visit this brother. So we take our police car, go up to the hospital. He's in emergency. We go visit him. Now, we didn't go in there to interrogate him, to question him. We just came in there and said, hey, man, we just came in here to see how you doing. Is there anything you need, man? Are you okay, man? Now, for us, it was a very small thing. I fellowshiped with that brother for 20 years because he said that impacted him because we cared about him. he stopped being a gangster that day. Because everything you heard about the police, which is probably true, a lot of it, but guess what is also true? This. See, we're not one-dimensional. We're very complicated. We're not one-dimensional anything. It's not all police are bad, all police are good. We're all of those things all together at the same time. It's very complicated. But in those moments, these things matter. What I love about my job is more than most people, I got an opportunity to be in those moments with people. Good, bad, and indifferent, I got to be in those moments with people. And people remember those moments. That's the beautiful thing about my job. That's why I would never trade it for anything. And even though the experience was difficult, I would never trade it for anything in the world. Because when people really needed somebody, I got to be there with them. In that moment, right there with them. Last example, a good friend of mine's daughter gets raped by her boyfriend. It was actually one of those things where, she was with the dude in the room and he wanted to have sex and she really didn't, so he just did it anyway. And so she's scared now because she might be pregnant, and so she wants to have this conversation with her mother and her father, who's not approving of this dude in the first place. And so now, how can I have this conversation with them about my involvement with him without getting myself in serious trouble with my dad? Well, I just say that he raped me. Boy, have you heard that scenario messing up young men's lives for the rest of their lives, right? This is the complicated part. And so he might have been over-aggressive, but what you doing up in the bedroom with the cat in the first place? I mean, come on, it ain't like this dude. But anyway, so all her father hears is that she got raped by this dude. Now, he's looking for a reason to end this. And this dude's ex-football player, very strong, very, aggressive. He's looking for this dude. He goes up to Jeff, goes to the classroom. He's driving to his work, can't find a dude. And eventually they didn't find him. This is what I always loved about. This is when I knew I did my job right. This is why I knew that I was doing what I was supposed to do, and I was who I was supposed to be in this position. This man in this emotional state, actively looking for this dude, comes to the precinct where I work, goes to the front desk and says, I want to talk to Officer Anderson. I don't want to talk to nobody else. Tell me where officer. They call me and they say, hey, you got somebody at the front desk? Say, he ain't talking to nobody but you. He ain't talking to nobody but you. And he's upset. He's a big dude. We don't know what's going on. You need cover? No, I'll go over and talk to him. And I go over and talk to him. I'm looking at this daddy who I know. And I know if this daddy finds this boy, he's going to kill this boy. You understand what I'm saying? We talking about life and death. We're not talking about movies. This dude is serious. I'm going to kill this boy because this boy done this to my daughter. That man looks me in the eyes. I said, look, man, this is the deal. Get in your car and go home and wait for me to call you. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go get that boy. Okay, I'm going to go get him, and we're going to work this out. That brother stood there and looked me dead in my eyes. And then he turned around, he got in his car, and he went home, and he waited for me to call. You know what he's looking for? Doubt. He's looking for doubt. If he doubted anything I said at any time, he was out of there and gone. He had to believe me when I said, go home, I will handle this. I spent my whole career building that kind of reputation. If I tell you I'm going to do something, it's going to be done, bro. You can count on that. And if I tell you that I'm going to go get the dude, I'm going to handle it, then this dad, who is enraged, who is out his mind, he got to believe me. Because if he don't, he's supposed to go and No telling what's going to happen. He count his boy. It's going to be bad. His life's going to be different. But I can do it for him because I have the legal authority. That's why my job's important. That's why my job's important, because I can go do what you can't do because I have the legal authority and you don't. And I take all the risk because I'm indemnified by the city because I have the legal authority to approach that boy. If the boy don't cooperate with me, I have the legal authority to use force to bring him into custody. You can do the same thing, but can you carry the liability if something goes wrong? Now, what has happened in the current climate is they've taken all that away from officers, and they say you no different than a citizen out there on the street. That's not true. There should be a difference, and there's a reason why there's a difference. We're going to get into that. It's another conversation. But that's what was important to me in my job. That's why my career spent all that time getting that kind of credibility so that people, when they needed help and they were desperate, they believed that I could help them. They believed I could help them, and that's what was important to me. And if I told you I was going to do something, if I told you I was going to go down and get your car back, I'm damn sure going down and getting your car back. And you don't need to know all the details. That's what's important. That was important to me. And he looked at me, and if I'd had any doubt, if I'd have been like, well, I don't know policy, I don't know if he'd heard any of that shit, he was out of there. That's why he looked at me and he said, all right, man, I'm trusting you with my daughter. Now, I'm finding this boy. And so that's what it took me 20 years, 27, 28 years to get the public to believe that about me. They didn't always like it because it didn't always work in their best interest, but they can believe it. That if I said something, I was going to do something, it got done. Didn't matter. That's what was cool about my job. Everybody don't get to do that. Not at that level. Everybody don't get to say, well, what can I do directly to make a situation better or worse? A lot of people don't get to do that. I got to do it every day for almost 30 years. I read quotes all the time. I can't think of one quote that stands out. But I can tell you why I live in Oregon, because the work isn't done yet. If I was back when I won't say I'm an outdoor guy, but I'm a upfront guy. I'm a tip of the spear guy. I'm it's kind of weird, but I like things that are kind of dangerous, undone, not. And they call this the Wild Wild West for a reason. Aside from the natural beauty, there's so much work that needs to be done here, the foundation. There's no place that we as a people group shouldn't occupy, shouldn't be a part of, shouldn't resonate here and leave an impact for people to come and experience all this. And if we all just go and there's no pathway for people to follow with guideposts that indicate what you should and how you should avoid, then there's always going to be a place that excludes us and doesn't acknowledge us or be thought of as some place that we don't occupy. And so that part, I like and I don't want to say pioneer or pilgrim aspect, but man, if I lived when Lewis and Clark was doing an expedition, I'd have been on it. I'd have been the guy going out into the jungle or the wilderness and making a place for people to exist, to bring things into order so that we as a people can exist there. I think that's inherent in my nature. I think this part of the country kind of exhibits that for me. We're not nowhere near to being done. And because of that, we haven't completely defiled and corrupted it like I see in some other cities that I go and visit, where we're just occupying now and where it's become almost a putrid state of being for us because it's so corrupt. I still think that the potential for growth and development exist here for us. We just need to take advantage of it. We need to be purposely thinking about it. We need to stop listening to those who would tell us that we don't belong here. Not, because this part of the country and the beauty and the natural beauty and all that is something that everybody should experience, including us as a people. So, and besides, I got people buried. I got people's blood buried in the ground. I got people in the ground that came before me, and so how can I abandon that? Remember, I'm not one to abandon. Quote, man, brother, I almost got to look. I tell you how crazy quotes are to me. I keep a list of them. So you can see that's my list of quotes that I refer to and that I read every day. I read this list of quotes. Let me see, I'm up to 145 right now. This last quote that I wrote down that are really cool is, you guys heard of Professor Black Truth? You guys ever heard of Professor Black Truth? This is a radical brother on the YouTube, man. He's radical. He's way radical. And I quoted him. He said, history is the institutional memory of the people. History is the institutional memory of the people. That's why they want to rob you of your history. Because it is a corporate memory of all of us as a people group. And you inherit it. You inherit that memory. You don't learn it, you inherit it. It's passed on. There's a quote by Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey. It's a warning. Way back in the day, he said, black people, if you are not careful, you will drink in all the poison of Western civilization, and you will die from the effects of it. That's why I think origins is so important. When you understand the origin of something, how it originated, then you're in a better position to deal with it as it is, not as you want it to be. And until we deal with our collective position in this country as it is, not as we perceive it to be or want it to be, we're always going to be our biggest enemy. What did Michael Jackson say? Man in the mirror. If you want to know who the enemy of your soul is, go look in the mirror. In the end, you are going to be the one responsible for why you are not included in the kingdom. The attitude and decisions that you make is what's going to keep you out of the kingdom. Nobody, no white person, no this person, you're going to do. You are the governor of what happens to you. So I believe that, and I find this pretty part of the country challenging to me. And so I never abandon challenges. I mean, this is where the Father has me. And while I've been to Africa and all over the country, I remember the day that I was in Benin, on the Ivory Coast of Africa, it was hotter in Portland than it was in Benin. First of all, just to be remembered is enough. I mean, if you say Larry Anderson, somebody say, I remember, that's enough. But I would like for people to think that I was authentic, that I wasn't fake, that I wasn't full of shit. Good, bad, and different, the boy was authentic, man. What you see is what you got. There wasn't no big mystery. It's complicated, but I like people to either like me, dislike me, because I was authentic, because they knew what they was getting.
Thanks for tuning in to Oregon Hidden Legacy. For more information about this podcast, go to OregonHiddenLegacy.org.